Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Pause the video right now to check out my social media, my radio show, and thatdrummerguy.com. And most of all, enjoy the following presentation.
Hello?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey man, what's going on?
Doing good on this end. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
Yeah, no problem, man. Anytime.
Oh, awesome. Well, of course, we're here to talk about the brand new album from Rivers of Nihil, Where Owls Know My Name. I've gotten the chance to be able to check this out over the last few weeks, and I can just say without question, this is easily my favorite thing that you guys have done, and I think by the end of the year, it will easily be one of my favorite albums of the year. I love the diversity that's going on with this. I love the atmospheric elements that have been really shining through the entire album, and it just feels like this is a great representation of where the band is right now in 2018.
Oh yeah, man. It's it seems like most of the people that have heard the record, as well as the two singles that have come out that everyone's been able to hear, it seems like people have been responding to it really positively, which is cool because we definitely did change quite a bit in our sound on this record. So you always kind of go into situations like that wondering how people are going to respond to it, and it's been pretty surprisingly good responses so far, and we're happy about that.
Yeah, and that's going to be a great feeling knowing that the release date of March 16th is just coming up in just a few weeks, and having people be able to really fully experience where you guys are right now.
Yeah, definitely. It's things have been pretty good recently. We're really happy with how everything's been going.
So, with all of that said, how did the songwriting process begin for this new album?
Pretty much the same as it did for our last record, where I have a studio at my house, and I don't know if you want to call it a studio. It's more of just like a room with some recording equipment in it. And I'll sit in there and demo out full songs. I'll pretty much put together entire tracks and then do like rough drum programming ideas on them, and then I'll send them out to the other guys, and they can kind of give me their opinions and feedback on the stuff that I've written. But yeah, I just pretty much started. I guess the writing for this record probably started around late 2015, early 2016. I think the first song that I completed is actually the last song on the record, and I feel like that song has like a pretty good, it really set the tone for the rest of the writing process because it has so many different sort of vibes in it as compared to our earlier stuff. So once we completed that first track, things kind of just snowballed from there, and the record turned into what it is now.
So with that, with the last track being the song that you were focusing on first for this album, was it a conscious effort to be able to write something like that, or did it just come out naturally?
Honestly, it kind of came out naturally because at first, I guess I should have mentioned, we kind of started writing some stuff before that was like more, I guess, in the vein of like tech, like straight up tech death, kind of like our earlier stuff that was like, very like super fast riff based stuff, and like when we did that, we were kind of just like, man, like, we've kind of done this before, and like there are other bands out there, like Archspire, for example, that are just way better at doing the tech thing than we will ever be. So like maybe we should focus on, trying something, unique to us and maybe a little different for us. And, that's when we started writing the record, that first song that I was talking about. And honestly, it kind of just happened naturally. Like I tried not to really think about it too much, just to kind of write riffs that like felt good on my hand when I was playing them, and just kind of put, different layers and textures in the music that would, just make the listener's brain feel good. I know that sounds silly, but with the atmospheric stuff, adding that to your music, it can kind of put you in a listener in like a neat headspace. So we really wanted to just focus on the feelings and the vibes of the music this time around, as opposed to like the technique and the sheer speed, you know?
And that's what I really appreciate. I mean, of course, the album is filled with a lot of great technical aspects, but being able to focus more on the atmospheric moments that are going on there. And just like you said, it does make the listener feel happy and almost in a very relaxed state while listening to it amongst all the chaos that can be there. I mean, when you're able to add those kind of elements to it, it makes everything stand out more, and it's so much more fun to listen to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I listen to like a lot of post rock music, as well as like a lot of like progressive rock music from like the 60s and 70s, and a lot of those bands, you know, when you listen to their music, depending on like what you listen to, you can, you know, follow a melody that might be going on the bass or in the atmospheric guitar track or on the keyboards, or you could follow the main riff. So it's almost like you can kind of just choose to follow along to whichever layer of the music you feel the most attached to. So I feel like adding that kind of dynamic to your sound gives the listener an opportunity to kind of hear the music the way they want to hear it.
And with that, The Silent Life and The Home have been released as singles so far, and as of today, there's actually a guitar playthrough of The Home, which I just watched a little bit ago, and I just absolutely love seeing those kind of playthroughs to see how songs are go through in the way like that. How did those songs get chosen to be released as singles?
Well, we kind of, since there are some songs on this record that are like, you know, very different compared to our previous releases, we kind of wanted to slowly release the new material in a way that wouldn't totally shock our older listeners. Like, for example, the first song that we released, The Silent Life, has, you know, a lot of traditional Rivers of Nihil elements, like, you know, the atmospheric stuff and the really heavy riffs, and then, you know, it also has, you know, like a saxophone section and like a really kind of like low-key sort of mid-section that is kind of different for us. So we wanted to put that one out first because it kind of holds on to some of our older elements while introducing some new ones. And then on A Home, which came out this week, that song, it introduces a little bit more of a new sound to the listeners. Like, there's, you know, a little bit of clean singing on that song, and, you know, there's some acoustic guitars, and, you know, maybe some different elements like slide guitar, or like, you know, rotary speaker guitar solos, you know, that we're kind of like, I guess we're kind of like warming the audience up to, you know, the rest of the record, because there are, like I said, there are some tracks that on the record that, you know, if we were to just like come right out the gates and like show people those really different tracks, that some people might be a little, you know, not overly, they might be a little surprised in an unpleasant way because there's so many new elements. So we've kind of chosen these songs to release as singles because we feel like they're good warm-ups for what's to come on the rest of the record, I guess.
Yeah, that totally makes a lot of sense. And, you know, like you said, if you would have done something like Subtle Change or something, you know, released that as a first single, you know, it's just like that could have been polarizing to some fans. But, you know, it's like you're going about that the right way. I mean, The Silent Life was a great first representation, and being able to show off A Home in both a single form and in the guitar playthrough, which just came out today. You know, just being able to show off those songs and show where the band's going right now, it should hopefully ease people into the new album and really enjoy everything that's going on for the rest of the album.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I personally, you know, I thought, because I'm always the kind of like the black sheep, the weirdo, when it comes to agreeing on things within the band. I personally, I was like, you know what, why don't we just release Subtle Change as the first single and just blow everyone's head off at once with all the weird stuff? But we all, you know, kind of came to the agreement that probably wasn't the best idea. So I think the way we're doing it is working out pretty good, because I haven't really seen too many negative remarks about the new stuff. And I mean, you know, for a band that's traditionally been a super heavy death metal band, to bring out, you know, clean vocals and saxophones, you would think that people might have something negative to say about that, but I really haven't seen too much of that. So I think the way we chose to go with releasing these as singles was a smart move.
Yeah, and it's funny because I actually would have agreed with you in the beginning too. I mean, Subtle Change is easily my favorite song on the album, and that would have been cool to see that as a first representation of the band. But, you know, just like you talked about with the band, you know, just like making sure that you're easing people into it with these singles and everything. I mean, it's definitely a smart move, and I think when people finally get to the middle of the album, they hear Subtle Change. I mean, they should hopefully love what they hear, because I know I have.
Oh, that's good to hear. I've actually, pretty much everyone that's heard the record, surprisingly has said that Subtle Change is their favorite song on the record, which is definitely shocking for me, because when I was writing that song, I was like, man, there's no way anyone's ever going to like this, because it's so weird for us. But surprisingly, pretty much everyone that I've talked to, they always say, man, Subtle Change is like definitely my favorite song on the record, so that's cool to hear.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love seeing that in bands I care about, where they're able to expand their horizons and start writing more elements that they want to incorporate into the band, rather than feeling like they have to stick to one style if they're not feeling into that anymore. So the fact that you have an album that has songs like The Silent Life or The Home, and then you have a song like Subtle Change, I mean, it's great to see that great diversity and representation of the band, because I know that's even going to expand upon more in all the right elements in the future.
Yeah, well, that's cool to hear, man. I'm happy to hear that. That's one of my favorite songs too, if not my favorite, and it's the longest song we've ever had, and it's definitely the weirdest, so it's neat to know that people are accepting of it and digging it, you know?
Oh, absolutely. So with that said, of course, the new album Where Owls Know My Name, where did that title come from?
Bass player Adam Biggs, he writes 95% of our lyrics, and he's like the big concept guy. Like, we have this whole seasonal thing that we're doing. Every record we have has a different seasonal theme. Our first record was spring, our last record was summer, and now this record is an autumn themed record. And Biggs came up with the name Where Owls Know My Name. Basically, it's more or less a metaphor for kind of like a place of isolation, you know, away from the rest of the world, where one can go and kind of reflect on their life and reflect on, you know, the decisions they've made as a person, maybe regrets that they have, maybe reflect on mortality. And the owls part is nature. You know, Where Owls Know My Name means like going to a place where only the nature that surrounds you is aware of your presence.
And that's so cool to me. I mean, that's what I've, again, always appreciated about the band, is like there's always these very thought-provoking lyrics that really make you think about things. And I really noticed that this time around as well. I mean, there's so many elements that make you think about different things in life, and when you match that up with the music that's going on, I mean, it just makes for this great whole experience that's worth listening to over and over again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Biggs he's definitely like an irreplaceable part of the band, just because, I mean, well, obviously he's an incredibly talented bass player, but he's like one of the most like creative people I've ever met when it comes to like storytelling. I think it might have something to do with him growing up as just a huge video game nerd, just playing, you know, video games all the time and reading comics and kind of just, you know, building up all of this like artistic knowledge over his life until he could finally use it in a band as an outlet. And he's always got like really cool ideas. I mean, the lyrics that he writes some awesome lyrics, like stuff that like, you know, I've been playing music with Act Brothers, and we just like, we hate each other, and, you know, we get under each other's skin. But like, even having said that, you know, like the stuff that he writes, I still get excited about it because I can connect with it and I can relate to it. And I don't know, I think he's got a pretty different take on death metal lyrics than a lot of the guys that I've met. He's just like very rooted in storytelling and very rooted in art. And I mean, some of his favorite writers are, you know, some of the greatest writers and lyricists of our time. So I think it's cool what he's done, what he does with the music that you know, we present to him. He just has this complete picture in his head about where he wants to go with it, and he just, you know, lays down these like totally sick stories and awesome lyrics.
Yeah, and it's so great to do that, because when you have someone like that in the band that is just so inspired and has so many great ideas, it starts to transfer to the rest of the band too, where everyone else starts to want to forge ahead and progress as themselves. And, you know, I can hear that through the albums. I mean, I can just hear you guys just getting tighter and tighter, whether it's in the lyrics or the songwriting process or the production, just like everything just gets bigger and better from the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's pretty fun to listen to, for example, like our very first EP that we ever released back in 2010, and then to put on, Subtle Change from our new record, just comparing the two, it's just like, it's like night and day, just like hearing how far we've come from what kind of band we used to be. And, we've just grown as people and musicians. So it's definitely it's a fun thing to see, like looking back through all the stuff that we've done over the years, to see that we've kind of come to this point where we're, we just, like I said, we've all gotten a lot older, as people, like 10 years now almost, and just learned a lot. And I think it reflects in our music. You can hear it in our music that we've all kind of grown up a little bit and learned what we're good at and what we're not good at,
And in speaking of that, I mean, with being able to show off this new album, of course, there's going to be some amazing upcoming touring that's going to be able to promote the album.
Yeah, definitely. We're leaving on the 15th of March to tour the United States. I think there's one Canadian date with Dying Fetus, Die Art is Murder, Enterprise Earth, and Sanction. So that'll start on the 15th of March. And then, I mean, we have stuff coming up after that we can't really talk about yet, but that tour should be really cool because second day of the tour is the day that our record comes out. And being on tour when your new record comes out is always a really cool thing because it makes you feel like you're really out there, like working for it, so should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. I mean, that's just in such perfect timing to be able to be on a tour like that and being able to promote the new album.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we, I always try to like talk to our team of guys that, that set us up with the tours and stuff. I always try to like push really hard for us to be on tours, when we have releases coming out, and it doesn't always happen. Like on our last record, for example, we weren't able to be on tour during the release of that record, and we were on tour for the release of our first record, and even though our first record didn't necessarily, do as well as our second record did, I still feel like the fact that we were on tour for our first record, it was just a better feeling. You feel like you have this product that like you spent 2 years working on, and you're just out there on the road, like playing shows and, selling records to people and meeting people. It just feels like a much more, I don't know. It's just a good feeling to like be out there working when you release new music.
And with that, I mean, with the change that's happened with the band, how does it feel playing some of the older material as it is to rehearsing for the new material that'll show up in the live set?
I mean, it's, a lot of those older songs were just like, they're so like, we probably don't even need to rehearse them just because we've played them so many times. But I mean, I feel like there's still, I feel like some of those older songs still have relevance, like I still feel like playing some of those older songs live is like a cool thing to do. Like, I mean, songs like, Rain Eater or Mechanical Trees, I still feel like those older songs, they're different than what we're doing now, but I feel like they still, if someone came out to a show and saw us playing those tunes, I still feel like I'd feel good about them, hearing those songs and being like, oh, well, that's what that band kind of sounds like. I feel like there's still a pretty good representation of like the things that this band stands for sonically, even if it's only on a primitive level compared to the newer stuff that we've been putting out.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to look at it, too. I mean, with being able to incorporate everything that you guys have done in recorded form into the live show, I mean, whether it's from the first album, second album, or the new album, I mean, anyone going to a show, there would be a little bit of something for everybody. Ones who like the more progressive atmospheric stuff will enjoy the new stuff more. Those who enjoy the more technical aspects will be able to enjoy some of the older songs, and if they want something in the middle, I mean, there's the Monarchy stuff. I mean, there's always going to be something there for everyone that likes the style of music.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like, when we play shows, there's guys that'll come up to us that, they just love our first record and they can't stand our second record. And you know what? Like some bands would get real mad about that and be like, well, fuck you. Like, you don't know us. Like that old stuff sucks. But like, we don't see it that way. It's like, if you like our band in any version of the band, like that's awesome. Like that's why we play the older songs. That's why we still have the older record out there for sale. It's like, there's something for everybody, and like we don't blame anyone for preferring one CD over the other. It's like that's what music is. It's up to the listener. Everyone's allowed to have their own opinion. So when we play the older stuff live, I mean, dudes are real stoked on that, but they're not stoked on the new stuff. That's totally fine.
Yeah, and that just says so much. I mean, whether it's the musicians themselves, I mean, with like every album, it should be some kind of progression. Even if they're writing in the same style, it should be some kind of progression that's going on with each album. And with the listener, they're not always gonna enjoy what's gonna happen with the next progression because they might love just one style, or they might just not like the style that someone's going into. But there's always going to be common ground if you search hard enough. And that's the great thing about a band like Rivers of Nihil, because there is those technical moments, the death metal moments, the atmospheric and progressive moments that are being incorporated much more now. I mean, for someone like me that enjoys all of it, it's great to see that all of that can be shown off in the band, and in the future it can incorporate any of those styles and it'll make sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that on this record in particular, when we decided that we were going to kind of take things in a slightly different direction, we wanted to make sure that we still, preserved like the core elements of what we are as a band. Like we've always been just a heavy, whether it's an emotionally heavy or just a musically heavy band. That's always been us. So we wanted to kind of retain that sort of feel, even if we brought in some really different sounding moments. Like there have been some bands in metal that have like changed their sound like completely over the course of one record, and their fans have gotten really upset about it. I mean, for example, like Opeth, like I love those new Opeth records and I love the old Opeth records, but like a lot of people hated those new Opeth records when they first started coming out because they changed pretty much everything about their sound and their production, and it just like shocked people. So I think like one thing that we wanted to make sure that we did was still preserve like the basic outline of what Rivers of Nihil is, and still have that kind of like punchy, like modern death metal production. But we also wanted to bring in like the new stuff with like the saxophones and the Mellotrons and the clean singing and all that. So yeah, I don't know. We wanted to make sure that we didn't blow everyone's head off over the course of one record by changing everything about what it is that we are.
Oh, totally. And speaking of that, I was just thinking about it. With the new album, did you change anything in your setup at all to be able to accommodate things, or did you already have all that at your disposal?
Like equipment-wise,
yeah.
Or what do you mean?
Oh, yeah, like your guitar setup, your amp setup, stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Not really. I mean, I started messing around with some like new software, some Mellotron software. There's this company called G-Force. They're a software company. They've made stuff for like Nine Inch Nails and Rick Wakeman from Yes and stuff. And I got some stuff from them, some Mellotron software that we employed pretty heavily on the new record. Got some software from Moog for keyboard synthesizer stuff. Also borrowed a lot of equipment from my friends. Borrowed a lot of nice amplifiers. We got a JCM 800 from Will Putney. He was kind enough to let us use a Marshall JCM 800 for guitars. My other friend Mike, he let me use two of his old Mesa Boogie rectifiers. They're the kind of Mesa Boogies that Meshuggah used on Chaosphere, which is like my favorite guitar tone ever. So yeah, I mean, we use all real amplifiers on this record, and then we profiled them with our Kemper profiling amps for live use. But like, I guess on this record, we didn't really get too much new stuff, just like a few things. But I think that like the few things that we got, along with like the mentality, the open-mindedness that we wanted to like try new things, it was all like, it all contributed to the bigger picture of the record.
Yeah, and speaking of like the Mellotrons and everything that's like focused so heavily on the album, I mean, being a huge prog nerd like myself, I really love it when those moments show up on the album. I mean, it's just like moments I never would have really imagined, but now that I hear it in the album, I can't imagine those parts without those moments. I mean, they just fit so perfectly.
Yeah, definitely. We wanted to like, we didn't want to use the Mellotron in a way that was like outwardly obvious at all times. Like, oh, there's a Mellotron. Like there are parts on the record that have Mellotron on it where it's like, okay, that's a traditional sounding Mellotron. But a lot of the times what we would do is we would take the Mellotron or the Moog or the Hammond organ, for example, and we would run it through like a really wild series of effects, like reverbs and delays and choruses and strange tape effects, just to like mess the sound up and make it sound like super and spooky and atmospheric, maybe in different ways than it would normally be used. But I don't know, I think that Mellotron in particular, when you run it through like a real big sounding reverb, I think it's like one of like the darkest sounding instruments like on the planet. It's just like so sinister sounding. I don't know if that's a good word for it, but it just has this like super dark sound that like we just love,
Oh yeah, and that's what makes albums from like Opeth and Porcupine Tree and other bands that really incorporate like darker styles of music but have that Mellotron effect to it. I mean, it adds so much more to it, and that's the great thing with the new album. I mean, being able to have that kind of diversity with it and having like the Moog and the Mellotrons and stuff like that, being able to really get those dark sounds that you can't always get out of other string instruments, and being able to just incorporate that into the sound and just make it feel so sonically full.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think with the Mellotron in particular, a lot of bands out there use like orchestral samples of real sounding orchestras, or they just use real orchestras if they have lots of money. But I feel like sometimes those big string moments on other records, they sound beautiful and cool to be said about the sound of a Mellotron, because it's just like it's kind of shitty, but in like a good way. It adds like this certain like grit to a record, because Mellotrons are old instruments from the 60s they're basically just recordings of real orchestras, but they sound dirty and fucked up and weird because they're recorded on old pieces of tape, so like they give the vibe of the song or the record this like really kind of dark, fucked up sort of sound that you can't really, like you said, you can't really get with like a traditional instrument like an orchestral library or whatever. So I think that using the Mellotron in particular kind of brings this sort of like dark veil over the record, this dirty kind of messed up dark veil over the record that I don't think we could have gotten if we would have just used like regular violin or cello samples.
Yeah, very much so. And again, it's just, I keep saying it, but I can't stress it enough. I love the diversity that's going on with this album. I mean, being able to show off the great, heavy, brutal technical moments, the more atmospheric, progressive moments, the clean vocals, the screams, the growls, the production, just everything just feels so right and so natural for you guys right now. And I just imagine in a live setting, it's just going to be an absolutely great experience to be able to hear the new songs live mixed in with the older material. And where you guys go from here, it makes me very excited to see where you guys are going to be going with the fourth seasonal album, because I mean, if this is the kind of progression that you guys are doing now, I mean, I'm already at the edge of my seat for the next one.
Yeah, well, I'm on the edge of my seat too, because we haven't started writing anything new yet, but I think that Subtle Change was the last song that we wrote for the record, so I mean, I don't know for sure, but I mean, maybe that's a sign of what's to come. Usually I don't feel inspired to write until a record is out completely, and then that's usually when I start feeling like the drive and the pressure to like start writing new material. But maybe I don't know. I mean, Subtle Change was the last song that we wrote for this record, so maybe that's kind of a clue about where we're heading, but I don't even know at this point because we haven't started writing, but I guess we'll see.
Oh yeah, and of course there's all the promotion that's going to be going on with other press interviews that's going on, and of course being able to do this great 2018 touring with stuff that's been announced and the stuff that will be announced in the future. I mean, it's just awesome to see all these great opportunities that are going on for you, and I just know things are going to just continue to keep getting bigger and better from here on out. I mean, as a fan since the first EP, it's great to see the progression that you guys have done so far, and I just hope that continues on because I know you guys deserve it.
Well, that's nice to hear, man, and thanks a lot for saying that. I think things have been a gradual climb for us. I don't think that anything that we've done has been, instantly overnight success. But I don't really think I would want it any other way. I think that the slow kind of climb that we've had as a band with, you know, our touring and whatnot. I think all of those experiences leading up to where we are now have kind of taught us to appreciate what we have and, you know, just be respectful as people and as a band. So I'm excited for where we're at now and where things are heading, and we're always, you know, very grateful for everything that's, you know, led up until now, for sure.
Oh, awesome. Well, once again, thank you so much for taking all this time to be able to talk to me about everything that's going on in the world of Rivers of Nihil. And like I said in the beginning, I've had the album for a few weeks now, and I've been really able to divulge into the album and just love everything that's going on with this album, and performing these new songs live, and, you know, just like all the success that hopefully comes with it, all the touring opportunities that's going to be coming with that as well. It was awesome to be able to talk to you and promote such a great album.
Well, thanks for having me, man. Anytime you want to have us on, we're happy to do it.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime that you guys got something to plug, any touring opportunities, the next recording process, anything, I'd love to be able to talk to you again.
Cool. Definitely sounds good, man.